Should acknowledge him if he wants to speak.
Okay, so we have council member, commission president. I don't know if you can see the hand raised. It is Joanne from CD8, but I have a feeling. Council member, commission president. I don't know if you can see the hand raised. It is Joanne from CD8, but I have a feeling. Council member, commission president. I don't know if you can see the hand raised. It is Joanne from CD8, but I have a feeling.
My apologies. I was on to let you know that our constituents were unable to see anything on the live stream, but it's on now. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Scott, are you seeing any hands raised? I'm not.
Can we repeat the commands for those in the meeting?
Sure. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute yourselves.
So perhaps it would be helpful if we actually, can we read out the call-in number so that speakers know what number they should be calling?
Scott, can you read the number?
Yes, if you are trying to call in by audio, the number that you should be calling into is 669-900-6833. That's 669-900-6833, and meeting code is 939-662-15269. Once again, the meeting code is 939-662-15269. Once again, the phone number to dial in is 669-900-6833, and meeting code is 939-662-15269.
Great. Thank you, Scott. So
We have
Commission
one member
President.
raising their hand.
Yep, perfect. And that is the number ending in 767.
That's correct.
So the person ending in 767, you can move forward with your public comment.
Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Richard Shabe. I'm a private citizen. Can someone who's in charge of this confirm you can hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Great. Hi, my name is Richard Shabe. I'm a private citizen. I live in Council District 14. I wanted to give public comment on the agenda item for street art, for public art for the bridge on the 6th Street Bridge and the project that you're considering. Last week, photographer Esteban Oriol, who popularized the LA finger symbol through his 1995 portrait of a woman from the East Side, complained on social media that the bridge art scheme used his 30 years of work for the pitch deck and mood board and all the press, and made a big deal about how important he, the artist, was to this, which he was, but then he was not asked to be part of the project. So I'm really going to ask that the commission just go back to the drawing board on this, the duplication of the artwork for both sides of the bridge, which of course was not how it was originally intended. I think this is just a huge stumble, and you just need to hit the reset button. There are lots of toes being stepped on and a lot of people being rubbed the wrong way, and the artist is very concerned. So please just go back and make a reassessment. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Are there?
Can we ask a question of the public speaker?
It's
If
my
that's
understanding.
legal, I don't
would
care.
check. It's my understanding. This is something that our city attorney can advise us on. It's our understanding that it is a public comment situation. We received the public comment.
Right.
Please ask me the question, though. I'm fine. I don't have to answer.
Is it okay with you, General Manager?
It's not about me. It is about whether or not that is permissible under the city ordinance. I would put that to our city attorney.
Where are they?
I'm here. Generally, this is the time where we receive public comment. So maybe you can just move on to the next speaker and raise the issue when we get to the item. Commissioner Benson?
Okay.
So what do you want me to do? Because, like, you want me to just stay on the line and, like, wait for someone to tell me it's time to ask me a question, or?
I think your time for public comment has concluded now. Thank you.
That's not what I mean.
Thank you. I'm going to see if there's any other hands raised. Scott, are you seeing any? I'm not, so I think this item is closed, so we'll move on to the next item.
Commissioner Scarfano, this
Yes.
is Commissioner Jefferson. I'm sorry, I'm not real comfortable with not making sure we're clear to the public how this generally has worked in the past. When it time comes for public comment, the public has 1 minute usually to give their comment. We receive that comment, and then we can't discuss it till we put it back on the agenda for another meeting. So since it was not on this agenda, we receive the information, and then the staff, et cetera, will go back, look at it, and we'll determine whether or not it comes back on the agenda for a subsequent conversation.
Commission President, it's just been in my past experience that part of the idea, and as in city council and subcommittees of the city council, when there's public comment, a commissioner or council person was always allowed to ask a question if they so wanted. And that's been my experience in other commissions that I've been on. So I'd like to double check this.
Okay, well, I think we can propose that question to the city attorney. And do we, Tanaya, do you have a comment on that?
But generally, like Danielle said, that we allow members of the public to give their public comment. I think that's what the speaker has used up their time. If you would like to invite them back right now to engage in a brief discussion, if it's on the agenda topic, let's go ahead and do that now if the commissioner chair is okay with that.
Yes, so it'll be agendized on the next meeting, correct? Or on the agenda item?
So what I would recommend is that we have a very full agenda. Let's receive our public comment. Let's go through the agenda. And if there is additional questions after the presentation on this particular agenda item, the commission can take that up at that time or at a future meeting.
Okay. All right, perfect. So I think that allows us to move to the next item since there does not look like there's any more public comment. So the next item.
Scarfano, I think that there are some speakers who would like to speak to an item that's on the agenda. And particularly, we have Councilmember Harris Dawson in the room who should be acknowledged to speak.
Okay. So Felicia, can you introduce him? I'm not seeing.
Yes, Councilmember, I think you're unmuted.
Hi, everybody. Hi, commissioners. This is Marquise Harris Dawson. It's good to be here with those of you serving in the capacity of this commission, and also to be with the leader of our Department of Cultural Affairs, Ms. Brazil, and the entire team. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm here to speak about a project that we've been working on with the help of DCA for the entire time I've been into office. Today represents a key inflection point or movement forward. We have before you a number of monuments that we're seeking your approval of. The Destination Crenshaw project is a project that combines economic opportunity, placemaking, as well as the arts, and using the arts really as the centerpiece for a placekeeping strategy. And for us, placekeeping is really about keeping the fabric of the society in place, keeping the people in place, keeping the customs in place, and keeping the traditions in place. It is a community engagement model that seeks to put culture at the center of that process. One of the challenges that we face among many in the Crenshaw district is the looming specter of gentrification. And one of the ways that we are pushing back on gentrification is by using the art of the people, the art that grew from the grassroots of this neighborhood in place as a way and strategy to keep place. We believe this is one of the best antidotes for anti-gentrification work. Los Angeles is a city that is very proudly the creative capital of the world. We think Los Angeles isn't the creative capital of the world if it doesn't have a vibrant and active and participatory African-American community, which the Crenshaw district has represented over the decades and the life of this city. And so with these projects in the Destination Crenshaw, as a part of the Destination Crenshaw program, we expect that our stories will be preserved, that our best art will be put forward, and that the contribution of African Americans will be highlighted and given the place on the stage that it deserves. When we're done, we hope to see variations of this project, just as we see variations of our music, our dance, our comedy, and other art. And we want to make sure that our businesses, our legacy businesses, our mom and pop businesses are there to take advantage of the opportunities that are created by the folks who will come to the Crenshaw district to consume African-American culture like they do all over the world. And so for us, this is about social justice. For us, this is about equity. For us, this is about, again, place keeping. We believe art is a place where African-Americans in Los Angeles have a special place, and we are particularly positioned to hold a space. And so we expect this Destination Crenshaw will become part of the cultural fabric of Los Angeles. Many of you know that there's a national conversation about monuments and who's in monuments. The monuments that we're going to put forward, we think are going to have an impact on the ratio of monuments that are to people other than white men involved in armed conflict. And we think Los Angeles is a good place to start a trend that we believe will be national. And so, you know, Los Angeles has Little Tokyo, Los Angeles has Chinatown, Los Angeles has Mariachi Plaza, and in the future, with your help, Los Angeles will have Destination Crenshaw. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Councilman Dawson. We appreciate you coming to speak before our commission. I think there's another hand raised.
Tafari Bain, and then I would just again, for everybody that is wanting to provide public comment on any agenda item, please raise your hand, use the hand function so we can call on you. We apologize for this this kind of bulky and uncoordinated dance that we're doing, but we really want to hear from you on these agenda items. So thank you for raising your hand so we can see you and then call on you. Okay, giving it back to Commission President.
Thank you, Danielle. So Tafari.
Hi, thank you for having me, and good afternoon. My name is Tafari Bain. I was born in South Los Angeles, raised on 67th at Crenshaw, attended Crenshaw High School for summer schools, Audubon for middle schools, and still spend a lot of time personally and professionally in the community I grew up in. I currently serve as City of LA Rap Commissioner of Rec and Parks, and I currently work as Chief Strategist for Cicla Via. It's from all these perspectives that I support Destination Crenshaw. From the project's launch, I've served on the Advisory Council, a group of Black civic leaders, art and community leaders, helping to provide guidance on the best ways the project could be best designed to both live up the voice of the Black experience, while also, sorry, my talking points fell off right here. the voice of the Black experience in Los Angeles, while also support this development and finding ways to stabilize the existing Black community living in the Crenshaw area and in Los Angeles in general. From groundbreaking local higher
Sorry, your audio, sorry to cut you off, but the audio is off. We'd love to hear what you're saying.
Oh, thank you for catching that. From groundbreaking local hire policies, direct investment in Black art and local artists, and support services and opportunities for local small businesses, I believe this project is an incredible opportunity to achieve those aims. And very concretely, the project will improve public safety. The Crenshaw Corridor is part of the city's high injury network, a series of streets known to have high rates of death and injury due to vehicular collisions. In the city of LA, these streets are overwhelmingly and located in Black and brown communities. By improving walkability, by increasing lighting, adding street trees, bike lanes, and other traffic calming measures, this project will bring more life and culture to the corridor, bringing more eyes to the streets. These will not only serve to improve safety and the quality of life for current residents of the area, but bring more economic vitality to the corridor as well. I thank you for your time and consideration on this issue and hope you will vote for support of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. I see we also have Mr. Greg Dulon.
Good afternoon.
Cultural treasure.
Cultural treasure, yes.
Can
Mr.
you hear
Doolin.
me? Can you hear me? I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
I want to make,
Greg,
Now-
you're on
now
mute.
you're
Greg, you're muted.
Greg, we mute. Let's start again, Mr. Doolin. You are
Yeah.
muted.
okay. How's that?
We got you.
Okay. I don't know how that happened. My name is Greg Doolin, and thank you for letting me speak today. I'm a second generation restaurant owner, family owner and operator of a family business. And my family's been serving delicious soul food in the city of Los Angeles for just about 50 years. I am located on the world famous Crenshaw Boulevard, where I've operated Doolin's on Crenshaw in this location for nearly 40 years. And Crenshaw Boulevard is one of the largest and most important Black business corridors in the nation. I've been involved in helping the Destination Crenshaw project since 2016. And I've participated in early visioning meetings for the Destination Crenshaw project. I've gotten other small businesses in the corridor and the district to donate to the Destination Crenshaw project. And I've witnessed many of the important milestones of this project, including today's meeting. I've done all of this because I know that this project will do a lot for my small business and the other legacy Black-owned businesses in the Crenshaw corridor as well. The community really needs this, and we've been needing this for quite some time. I've heard the project called an outdoor museum, but it's just as much an economic revitalization project. And again, this is something that is really needed in the Crenshaw district. Instead of the Crenshaw district being a pass-through for people from all over the world riding the Crenshaw line, I look forward to this place being an even greater destination as people get off at the Leimert Park station and hopefully walk a couple of blocks south to Doolin's on Crenshaw to taste my delicious food, or to go a little further north and try out my newest restaurant called Hotville Chicken, which is located at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. I welcome this investment. We need this investment. I look forward to people getting off the train, as I said, and learning about the greatness of Black Los Angeles. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doolin. I see the next public speaker is Joan Weinstein.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to the commission today. I represent the Getty Foundation and our parent organization, the J. Paul Getty Trust, and we are thrilled to join in supporting Destination Crenshaw. We're particularly proud to support the creation of what are extraordinary outdoor public sculptures by some of the most important Black LA artists. These artists not only have deep ties to the community, but some of them are, actually all of them are celebrated artists in the country right now. They're recognized for their significance nationwide. And their work will enrich not just this one neighborhood, but the city's entire collection of public art, and will become a destination for others to come into the community. I think the importance of this project can't be overstated. It's part of an ambitious project to reimagine a major corridor in South LA, greening the community through a magnificent streetscape. And it will be a community visualizing its pride in its own culture and establishing a permanent Black cultural presence in the Crenshaw neighborhood through artistic self-expression. And as such, it's really one of the most exciting initiatives in development in Los Angeles. And I think it really can be a model for place keeping rather than place making for other communities throughout the country. The Getty is providing financial support, but we are also working hand in hand with Destination Crenshaw to create plans to conserve and maintain the outstanding artworks that they're presenting today. And this partnership will extend to internships, apprenticeships, and job opportunities in the creative economy, in public art and in conservation, helping to instill a sense of community pride and ownership of the works, and hopefully adding to Destination Crenshaw's economic development program. And for all these reasons, we are extremely proud to support this ambitious community-led project. Thank you so much for letting me be here today.
Thank you, Ms. Weinstein. I will look through. Scott,
It looks like I don't see any other public comment on anybody else's hands raised. So maybe we just go back out to the phone lines one more time. If you would like to raise your hand, if you're on the phone, you can press #9. And if you are in the, if you want to speak, it's #6. Correct, Scott?
That's *6.
Excuse me, *9 or *6.
Let's see, I think. Scott, do you see anyone else? I do not, so.
I do not either. So
Okay.
I think we
None at
can
the moment.
move forward.
Oh, great. So we will close this item. Thank you, everyone. And moving on to the next item is the introduction of the new staff architect, Tammy Sam. Danielle, are you going to give a presentation on Tammy or?
What I'd like to do is just table this since we have so many people for the other items. Let's hold Tammy to the end so we can go ahead and roll these wonderful projects before the commission.
Okay, great. So we'll hold that to the end. The next item is the approval of the minutes. That's an action item. I have read through the minutes. I approve them. Do any of the other commissioners have any objections or comments?
I second your motion to approve the minutes of the August 2021 meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Gallardo. So we'll take a quick roll call vote, I think, for this.
Correct.
So, yeah, Commissioner Vincent. how do you-
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ho,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
Great. And Commissioner Gallardo,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So this has been approved. So now we can move on to the public art projects. So our first one is Destination Crenshaw, which is a very exciting project. It's located on Crenshaw Boulevard from Slauson to Vernon. And this is for conceptual and final approval. And it's in Council District 8. There's several artists that will be presenting. And I think Felicia Filer, you are going to present, correct? And introduce them?
Correct.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Felicia Filer, Director of the Public Art Division. It's my pleasure to introduce this project and present the project to the Commission. And I will be joined by 3 other presenters from the Destination Crenshaw team to walk you through the particulars of the project. But just to give a little bit of background on the project, as Councilmember Harris Dawson mentioned, this project, I actually joined the Advisory Council in 2016. And so for the past 5 years, there's been a lot of community engagement and public outreach work for this project. The council office assembled a team of 22-member advisory council to form to guide the formation of the 1.3-mile outdoor museum project. Separately, there was an 8-member curatorial committee that was convened to develop the art curation process and nominate marquee artists for the permanent 3-dimensional public art commissions. The curatorial committee nominated 14 artists for consideration, and 11 artists accepted the invitation to develop a proposal. The artists were assigned a site location based on the thematic nodes of each park site, which you will hear more about, and the artists were allowed to set their own project budgets, hence the diversity of budgets that you will see in their presentations. The curatorial committee reviewed the proposal concepts and budgets and accepted all 11 proposals. And so the first 7 artworks are included in this application and is coming to you as one project with 7 discrete artworks because they are located on city property. The remaining 4 artists whose works are more 2-dimensional will be located on private property along Crenshaw Boulevard, and that work is also underway. The artworks are anticipated to be installed in late spring and fall of 2022. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Jason Foster, who is the president and COO of Destination Crenshaw, and followed by Dr. Joyce Simmons, who will walk you through the curatorial process, speaking on behalf of the artists, because the artists are not here today. And then she's joined by Malcolm Davis from Perkins and Wills, who will also walk you through the artworks in situ at each of the parklets. So, Jason?
Thank you, Ms. Filer. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to present the Destination Crenshaw project. If I could be given screen share, I'd love to be able to kind of quickly give a snapshot of the project before we dive into the public art.
I'm terribly sorry. I seem to be locked out of my screen right now, so give me a few seconds. I try to give you co-host
I'll
permission.
go ahead and I'll give him privilege. Hold on one second, Jason.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Got it?
Yes, I do.
Great.
So as everyone has been communicating, this is the Destination Crenshaw project. Thank you so much, commissioners, representatives of the City of Los Angeles, the Department of Cultural Affairs, and everyone that has offered their public comment, as well as attending the meeting with other public art projects today. We are here to present the Destination Crenshaw project. As we've said, this is a 1.3-mile cultural infrastructure project along Crenshaw Boulevard that is from Slauson to Vernon. It is a combination of community pocket parks and spaces, a reforestation of the Crenshaw corridor with over 822 trees, and over 100 public arts commissions through the year 2027. The genesis of this project was actually the creation of the LAX light rail. This $2 billion investment was actually decided to be built at grade on Crenshaw. The Crenshaw Boulevard is actually the largest intact Black community west of the Mississippi and home to the largest Black business corridor on the West Coast. So this train development actually bifurcated the community, taking out 400 trees and 300 parking spaces for this really vital place for Crenshaw and South LA residents. And community members really came together, led by community leader and now LA City Council member Marquise Harris Dawson, to really think about what areas of focus, particularly this project could have to turn lemons into lemonade, so to speak. So they wanted to focus on social infrastructure, community ownership, public safety, a small business ecosystem. But one important element was the public art and how we can create a cultural experience along the 1.3 miles of the corridor. So when all phases are done, there'll be a number of pocket parks, large scale art installations, 2D murals, as Ms. Filer mentioned, as well as unapologetically Black narratives that capture the history, the presence, and the future of this placekeeping effort in our city. And one of the elements that's really essential and was mentioned by Ms. Weinstein earlier is that we do think of this as an economic development opportunity for the community as well as a job opportunity. So we're looking to leverage these public infrastructure dollars by creating new workers in the trades in our construction project, as well as new public artists, really focusing our efforts to early and mid-career artists that are centered in the Black community in Los Angeles to actually allow them to benefit from this community revitalization. And in my years in community development, that has been the missing piece, right? Like, how do you have improvement of the community, but also have community members tangibly benefit from the investment that takes place? So the intention of our project is to always tie back to our local hire and our local resident so that we can actually drive this effort forward as a move for permanence for our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joy Simmons, and I'm the Senior Art and Exhibition Advisor for Destination Crenshaw, and I'm now going to speak about the artwork. I'm not sure who has the slides. Hold on.
I'll present, Joy.
Okay, great.
There you go.
As you have heard before, in 2016, 2017, this project began with the gathering of local community members and advisors to be able to come up with what this art is going to be like. From this original group of advisors, we came up with the art curatorial committee that you see here. It was formed with artists and curators who convened to develop the criteria to select the artists considered for this project. Here are the members that you see here. These are people who not only have curatorial expertise in fine art, but also have the experience in street and graffiti art as well. They all have a deep connection to Los Angeles as a community, and they are well acquainted with the LA artists, from senior and mature artists, the well-known artists, as well as the mid and early career artists. Next slide. The criteria for the artists to be included in the selection: they had to be LA residents or educated in Los Angeles for 5 years, a minimum of a 3-year exhibition history, and a cultural connection to the African-American community. As you heard before, the committee originally developed a list of 67 early, mid, and established artists who had the 2D and 3D practices that would be appropriate for the permanent or temporary projects. From this group, the RFP went out to several artists and resulted in this group for permanent and long-term projects to kick off Destination Crenshaw along the Boulevard. I'm going to share a few of the projects now with you. Next slide. Okay.
Okay.
Malcolm?
I'm Malcolm Davis, and I'm with Perkins and Will, as Felicia noted, and I'm going to join Joy today in a joint presentation to talk about our project and about the art that is installed within the project footprint. Tafari earlier talked about, and Jason did as well, talked about the overview of our project, and it's about 1.3 miles on this important stretch of Crenshaw and flanks the new intervention, if you will, of the light rail line coming from the airport. And today we're going to talk about the initial installations Felicia referenced Roughly 10 of those or 11 of those that we see on the horizon, but 7 of those are 3-dimensional, and we have them installed in what we're calling pocket parks within this experience at the junctures of Slauson, West 54th Street, West 50th Streets, and down just shy of, or just south of Vernon Street, where Sankofa Park will happen. And these are the titles of those parks and some vignette sketches of each one as they happen throughout the experience. Its museum, its landscape, and its interpretive content that we will not go into as much today, but is also an important piece, just as the landscaping architecture is. We also spoke earlier of these thematic nodes that define each one of the intersections where the art and the parks will take place. They're defined by the notion at Slauson and Crenshaw of improvisation, where we'll recognize these sort of improvisational impacts of people throughout this community over the years. And our interpretive content and our art are sort of to be sort of designed and sort of beneath the umbrella of the notion of improvisation and what that has meant to the community. Similar as we go north to 54th and Crenshaw, although this experience sort of permeates with what we call connective tissue between these intersections, first is another node that sort of exemplifies the concepts of what people have done that were sort of trailblazing within this community, and very often were exported from Los Angeles, from Crenshaw, throughout the country, and ultimately to the world. The next one is Dreams at 50th and Crenshaw, again with the connective tissue of things that are happening in between. Dreams sort of as close as we know at 50th to Crenshaw High School. And there are 2 parks here, but this park is adjacent to that intersection in the school, but also looks across to the wall, which will also be revitalized as a part of this project. And then finally, the node of togetherness, which is again just south of Vernon, but at a park that we'll call Sankofa, and very close to the zone between 46 and Vernon. And Sankofa will be the largest of our parks and largest of our interventions, and will host, as you'll see, at least 4 examples of art. This is a quick overlay that we have done that shows exactly where today's presentation will cover for the 7 artists. Again, at Slauson and Crenshaw is what we'll call IM Park, 54th Street, 50th Street East at our Dreams node, and then Sankofa here at the far north. There will be 4 3D sculptural interventions of art. Our first park is at Slauson and Crenshaw again. IM Park, if you recall, this is again our improvisational node, and we'll go quickly into that. It's anchored by the US Bank at the corner of Crenshaw and Slauson, and just to the east is where our public park intervention will take place, and it'll be anchored by an art installation, but also some other playful components for the public to enjoy and take in views, but also engage and enjoy the artwork that will be installed here. This is a close-up of that park. Again, this is a thematic node improvisation, and the art installation will take place up in this far left corner of the park, which is the far sort of northwest area. The artist will be Brenna Youngblood, and Joy is going to step in and share some about that installation and the artist.
Yes, Brenna Youngblood is the youngest of our 7 artists that will be presented today. She's a painter and a sculptor and a UCLA graduate. Her sculpture, I Am, will be placed in the pocket park as was described above. Beginning with MIA, a 2011 wooden sculpture now in the collection of the LA County Museum of Art, Youngblood presented her own take on the blocks used to teach children to read and experiment with architecture. For Destination Crenshaw, Youngblood scaled up the sculpture and made the work in bronze, a material strong enough to support a child, and it will be 8 by 8 by 8. I Am is part of a series of work that she has done that investigates the ability to signify multiple meanings of words. The first term in the series, MIA, refers to the unaccounted for soldiers in battle and to the Montgomery Improvement Association, a group co-organized by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King to guide the bus boycott that began in December of 1955. Combined with these two illusions, the acronym could be extended to encompass community members lost to substance abuse, violence, incarceration, and the increasing militarization of the United States. But as she flips this for this new work, she chains MIA into the declaration, I am. It's a nod to the perseverance of the community and their contributions to the world in the face of adversity and oppression. Next slide. Here you see it sitting here in the park. Next slide.
That was our last one for that one, but fantastic intervention at that location. We're really excited. The next park is at 54th Street and Crenshaw, just sort of on that eastern side and across from the package store and then across Crenshaw from the EDD building. Another exciting intervention with some public parking anchoring the backside of it. An exciting park where we envision with the adjacency to the new senior home, there being seniors that will spill out into the park and help to be sort of part of this fabric of community and engage in games and so forth that will sort of activate this important intersection. Again, this is our first node. And so again, sort of this unique collaboration between sort of the elders that will now be residents here and taking up residency with the rest of the community and sort of speaking to those notions of first activities of which many of these residents will recall and remember. Melvin Edwards will be the sculpture, will have a sculpture here at this intersection, an important piece that will sort of anchor the entire park. And Joy again will share some of the details of that installation.
Melvin Edwards is a New York-based artist who grew up in Los Angeles, graduating from Dorsey High School and USC. His chain column is a 30-foot chain link form that symbolizes connectedness and the struggle upwards to a hopeful future. Next slide. Here you see it within the park. It will be really impressive for people to come and see this corner. That's really pretty an active corner all through this area. Crenshaw High School is 2 blocks away. Next slide.
Okay, and then the 50th Street Pocket Park down at Dreams, much closer even than this one, than 54th, of course, was to Crenshaw High School, is the Dreams location. And what we mentioned earlier about the wall, of course, is that directly across the rail and the 4 lanes of Crenshaw traffic is the wall. And the park was designed to sort of capture new views and sort of a viewing shed, if you will, of the wall, but to also integrate art, sort of making this entire dream zone something that as you pull in students from the high school after and before school, will fully engage the park, give kids an opportunity to stop off and engage and take in the art, but join in with the adults who will become a part of the experience to take in the art, but to also exchange ideas with one another. It's a close-up of the park and the art installation will take place here at the corner. But it gives a great opportunity again for folks to ramp up and to take advantage not only of the art from a different perspective, but from the wall sort of across Crenshaw to the west. The artist will be Allison Saar, and we'll talk about that artist as well as her installation. Joy?
For this corner, Allison proposes bronze sculpture that are 13 feet high apiece. One is male and the other is female, and they are dressed in 1950 to 1960s attire. The male figure sports a conjuring conch, featuring an accumulation of very authentic forms gathered from local estate sales, thrift shops, and fragments of musical instruments, as well as other tools of the arts, books, etc., all cast in bronze. Next slide.
Sure.
Here you see its location here within the park. Next slide. The female figure dressed in 50s dress, 60s outfit actually, will also be embedded with items that speak of the area that has really been a wellspring of creative innovation. They both will serve to attract, evoke, and invite the creative spirit of the community. I think we have one more slide.
Not for that group.
Okay, that's Allison Saar's presentation.
Very good. The last of the parks I mentioned earlier is the Sankofa Park, just south of Vernon Boulevard. And the idea with this one, and this is probably our biggest intervention, if you've been tracking any of the recent press, you're seeing a lot of images of this particular park. It happens on this wedge between sort of Crenshaw and Lamert Boulevards, and then Vernon is to the north. But this is a major park intervention, quite a bit more architecture perhaps than some of the other parks, but there's a reason for that. You could call it the crescendo, but you could also call it the entree to the project. The train system either daylights here or goes back beneath grade, and so there's even a portion of this park area that includes something on the lid of the train station. But lots of activity is planned here, lots of programming, interpretive content, so forth. But also 4 major art installations: Charles Dixon, Kehinde Wiley, Aaron Hassinger, and Artist Lane. Entertainment will happen here, but there will also be sort of this culmination of all of the interpretive content that will explain what all Destination Crenshaw is about. And we see there being quite a bit of activity that will happen at this location, and it'll be an orienter, if you will, for the experience. First artist, Joy, is Kehinde Wiley.
Yes, for Destination Crenshaw, the title of his piece is to be determined, but he proposes a female equestrian bronze sculpture in line with his Rumors of War that you see here. This is only the precedent image right now, but we'll talk about it anyway. So the sculpture with this West African woman will be gallantly riding on horseback in Crenshaw. She functions as a corrective or intervention, a code switch, if you will. She embraces the past towards a much broader and inclusive worldview with the goal of strengthening the ongoing legacy of the neighborhood. This project is going to immortalize that message that women matter, that Black lives matter, and the underrepresentation of our fellow citizens that needs to be dealt with now. Next slide. Here you see it here. Imagine the students crossing the street to one of the local schools across the street. It's really pretty fantastic on this large plinth. Next slide. Next, we have Charles Dixon. Here you have a mock-up. Charles has been a fixture in the LA art community for such a long time. His piece, Car Culture, next slide, is a cast stainless steel and perforated stainless steel. Oh, okay, piece. Next slide, I think will be more.
There you go.
There you go. All right. So this piece focuses on the car culture of Crenshaw Boulevard. It's composed of 3 10-foot tall Senufu West African figures, which on their heads supporting a crown of 10 cars fabricated from perforated stainless steel. And to this stainless steel armature that is above their heads, there will be the cars will be painted in red, black, and green and geometric motifs by local automotive painted artists that Charles has yet to define, but will choose. Also in this sculpture will be a network of illuminated fiber optic cables that will terminate in the headlights and taillights of these cars. Next slide.
Joy, I'm going to go back to the previous because I think that'll share some of the detail you just mentioned.
Yes, here you see that in the center there, you'll see where the Senufu figures have on their heads this truss that's going to be holding up the cars. And then just to that figure there, and then you see the cars as they are on top of the, as a crown, if you will, to these West African Senufu figures. And you also see kind of the paint jobs that will be on these cars, if you will, that will be on top of the sculpture.
Right.
Next slide. Okay, then we have Maren Hassinger. For Destination Crenshaw, her piece titled An Object of Curiosity and Radiating Love is a reinforced fiberglass paint orb with a motion sensor and reactive LED lighting. Next slide. The concept of this is a pink sphere whose diameter is approximately the size of a human's outstretched arms. Its intention is to soothe, comfort, and befriend those who need it. Its pink glow brightens as one passes by to show their value. It envelops them in this glow and sends a loving embrace. Pink also evokes its opposite color, green. The artist is reminding the viewer the importance of the life around them, and therefore its placement here in the park amongst all the green. Next slide. Okay. And lastly, we have Artist Lane. She's our most senior artist at 94 and has been an LA artist and beloved for many, many years. For this iteration, she has Emerging First Man, which is a cast bronze sculpture that's 12 foot high. This is this male figure is suspended vertically in a hierarchy, and it represents the spiritual awakening from darkness into light. It represents the Black man emerging out of the material thinking into transformative spiritual consciousness from darkness into light. What she intends to also have is the workings of the foundry, the gating material, ceramic shell, mold, etc. This kind of birthing materials that the man is emerging from, and it's going to be superimposed on the Black patina bronze of this emerging man. Next slide. Here you see it in Sankofa Park in this theme and this note of togetherness. And you see the Marian Hassinger piece kind of behind it there. Next slide.
I think that was our last one for the artist.
Oh, that's our last one? Okay, but here you see all of the work and its location from an aerial view in the park. We are so excited about this project and the artists that are represented here. They are major artists and very well respected. It really demonstrates the excellence that we expect and want to have in our community. This project is very important to me. I grew up in this area. I also graduated from Crenshaw High School. And to see this come back and to be the vital community that it once was is so important to all of us. Thank you. I appreciate your attention.
And I think just our last slide, is just about sort of how we envision this stitching into the construction. And all of the pocket parks that you've seen today, whether they have major construction involved or minor interventions, we expect those to begin to become available for the artist installation starting in the spring of next year. And depending on construction, as we all know, it will take some additional coordination with the artist teams, their fabrication timelines, and so forth. But this sort of gives a general idea of what we're anticipating, but it's being actively tweaked. But we expect that a lot of this work will commence starting in the spring for the actual installations of the art. Then we would hope that those would be completed by the end of the year or by the very first part of the first quarter of 2023. Okay. And I think that's our presentation. Thanks so much. We're so excited to be at this milestone and sharing this work with you. And I think we can either open up for questions, but certainly return it to the commission and to the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I'm going to open up to my fellow commissioners to see if they have any questions and comments. Commissioner Jefferson, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, first off, thank you all so much and for everything you've presented. I've been on this commission since before this project came into being as an idea, and I have been just waiting on it with such excitement. Thank you so much for the work that you've done working with the community, the people you've talked with. And I can't tell you how hard it's been to sit on the side as a commissioner and just wait. So thank you. I'm just thrilled. It's a home community for me as well. A couple of key questions come to my mind and a couple of thoughts. First off, all extraordinary artists. I'm going to work in reverse. The Artist Lane Emerging Man piece is actually in the collection of the California African American Museum. So this is something as a large outdoor piece that Artist Lane has always wanted, and I cannot think of an artist in the world who deserves a level of attention as a LA City resident as she does in being overlooked, and thank God it's happening before she's gone. The same is true for all of them, Marin Hassinger and Kehinde Wiley and Charles Dixon. Just one thought, and that is on Kehinde Wiley. We all love and adore him, and I trust anything he wants to do. As a commission body, though, I need to be able to say what we normally would say when someone comes to us. Not seeing the actual artwork that, or rendering of the artwork that is to go in, is something we normally do not approve and would probably have to go for concept, but not final, just simply because we never allow that with other artists that come before us, no matter how wonderful. Picasso could come in here and we'd say the same thing, and Kehinde Wiley is better than Picasso. The other is a larger context with regard to lights and lighting of all of the pieces, so that somehow or another they'd be able to be seen at nighttime, and we didn't hear any discussion of that. They're just all so wonderful throughout all of the sites that a little bit of information about how they will be lit in the evening would be great. And then the other is on the very first one with Miss Youngbloods, having had the experience of putting in the outdoor sculpture of Charles Dixon's in front of the California African American Museum, and then watching people go by and engage with it, which was originally intended to be temporary and then ultimately became a permanent piece. I also watched how the public interacted with it and they engaged on it. And so Charles quickly came over and did some things that were further reinforcing. So I was so glad to hear about all of these pieces, that they're prepared for that possibility. But in Brenna Youngblood's case, where it really does look like it's intended to be climbed on, I'm wondering whether or not you intend to put some sort of padding underneath it so that it is somewhat similar to what would be, I'm not trying to make her artwork into a jungle gym, but I love artistic jungle gyms. But I just want to say that because I think that that may become an issue. And then lastly, the last two issues are, you mentioned on 50th Street that you'll be able to see the wall from the park. I know that that's a part of the redo for the Destination Crenshaw, but I'm assuming it is not coming up to us right now for the approval until how it's being redone or refurbished will come before us. But you mentioned it, and I just want to make sure we're not missing that particular piece. And then there was just also finally that all of the placements are amazing. And I just want to add in that I think that besides all the people who spoke from the beginning and all the support that they've given to this, and I really am almost in tears about how important I think this project is. I love Joan Weinstein's comment about this is about place keeping. It is a corridor that was originally full of restricted covenants in the housing, in the land, in the way it was sold. No people of color were allowed to be there. And so the idea, and so at one point it was not necessarily the Black community, but it was in fact the Black community that saved and built and preserved and lived there after they started breaking through the covenants and there was white flight, and they stayed there. And as gentrification happens all over our city and people go to move back into other areas that are supposedly more affordable, and people who are of color can't afford to stay there, I am thrilled that this place keeping is an important slogan along with all of the work and the job opportunities that are there. I cannot, I know I'm taking longer, but I had to stop and say how utterly important this is and how much everybody who's been involved in this needs to be applauded.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Ho, do you have any comments or questions?
Commissioner Jefferson said something about having tears in her eyes, and I felt the same way. I just wanted to thank you all for presenting such a thoughtful presentation. And I can imagine just walking down the street when everything is done and understanding the storyline and a narrative that by the end of the street I would get. And I just wanted to thank you for honoring those stories. It was amazing to see the support of everybody here. So I just congratulate you guys for just thinking, like having this kind of presentation and thought for such an important project in our city.
Thank you, Commissioner Ho. Commissioner Gallardo, do you have any questions or comments?
Just an excellent presentation. I am agreeing with Commissioner Jefferson around the Kehinde Wiley's proposal. We need to see that concept in order to approve final approval. And then also underscoring Commissioner Jefferson's concern about Brenna Youngblood's piece. I would also ditto that for the Melvin, brain freeze.
Mel Edwards.
Thank you. Piece as well. But generally speaking, I was just, I had a sigh of relief when I saw Charles Dixon's piece, because in memory, right, when we say Crenshaw Boulevard, for me at least, right, cars, where are the cars? I know there might not be cars in the future, which is a good thing, but it was wonderful to see that piece. And then certainly having known and worked with Artist Lane, what a beautiful, beautiful, finale to that presentation, knowing her work would be there. So thank you all.
Commissioner Vincent, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I would love to echo every word of Commissioner Jefferson's remarks, but I could not be nearly as eloquent. I believe that it's enticing, embracing, engaging, and there are wonderful nodes that bring people together and have experiences together. I think the whole thing is just wonderful. I have one question. I'm not exactly sure how it relates, but I would like to be sure that the landscaping, that at least somewhat mature plants and trees are put in, because I mean, I hate to see a situation where you see, little shrubs and 3-foot trees, hoping that they'll eventually make it. And I think it's so important to have a green background in canvas in that area. And I just want to make sure or be reassured that they're going to be using more mature specimens.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Is there any feedback, Mr. Davis?
Madam Chair, I was just holding on. I didn't know what your format would be, but I think I at least have some responses for the committee, and I'll go as quickly but as in order as I can. And I, first of all, find it incredibly humbling to be a part of the project, particularly as a relative outsider here in a way. But to be involved with our team. And I think you've heard the warmth of the community be brought forward, all of whom are voices that we have heard that have sort of lifted our team up to continue with this important work. And we are grateful for the opportunity to be involved. I wanted to mention, first of all, and if I get some of the order thrown off, I apologize. But in Kehinde Wiley's case, we agree. It just so happens to be as our procurement goes, and you all know this, that's where we are with that process. And Destination Crenshaw has been working diligently to get that going. But we are confident that this sculpture is going to be sort of the response, if you will, in female kind to the Rumors of War sculpture. And we will be working with the artists very shortly to better understand that proposal and to integrate it with the architectural intervention that we have for that park. So we do expect that And we'll look to Felicia and others to guide us for how we need to bring that back once we have it. And I'm looking at Jason as well. The other comment for that park was about, or in general, was about the lighting. In every case, for every 3D sculpture, there's a lighting strategy that is a part of our base contract that has been closely coordinated with the artist to make sure that not only that the sculptures will shine and be highlighted, but there's sort of some consistency to the way that we will light the sculpture, the color rendition and so forth of all of the fixtures, et cetera, has all been sort of thought about so that there's kind of a uniformity to the way that the pieces are lit, but that also makes sure that you're not sort of overshadowing. In other words, sort of grazing them in a way that is impactful. Ms. Brenna Youngblood's piece and the sort of concern about what goes beneath her sculpture has also been considered. And there's sort of a soft turf material that will be used with the assumption that kids might, just given the color and given the scale, might be enticed to climb on that. She has also reinforced the sculpture in a way that, again, we're not promoting this as playground equipment by any means, but there's also always the chance that someone might climb on it. And so again, beneath the sculpture is a turf material that will sort of break falls in a way. And the sculpture itself has been reinforced. Similarly, for Mr. Melvin Edwards' piece, we have not seen that one as it's inviting or as enticing to kids to climb on. And so unlike Ms. Youngblood's piece and that park, we have not sort of planned for sort of a soft turf material there. We see that more as an adult intervention in a way. So that is not specifically something that we have considered in that case.
Okay.
Did I miss any other questions?
Oh, well, we have one commissioner that I need to, sorry,
sorry.
Mr. Davis, thought your response would be quick. So I apologize, Commissioner.
Sorry.
Jimenez. Do you have any, no worries. Commissioner Jimenez, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I think it's a uniquely beautiful and relevant project, and I'm very, very excited to support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jimenez. Are there any other comments? Danielle?
Yeah, just a general manager moment, if I could. I want to just thank Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson, Ms. Joyce Simmons, Mr. Davis, Mr. Foster, and of course, Ms. Filer. This is an extraordinary feat into itself. It is a public-private partnership. It is a private entity working with a major public works investment and improvement project to create new civic infrastructure, but not just any new civic infrastructure. It is creating new cultural infrastructure that will last generations. And that, as Joan Weinstein adequately and said beautifully, it is about placekeeping. And placekeeping comes from this notion and this practice that was created several years ago by Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson, that was kind of coined creative placekeeping, or creative placemaking. And I don't think that there was any intention that it would be used as a way to, that would be kind of co-opted by developers. So what I think is so extraordinary by this project is that community has reclaimed what place means. And what Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson did is she created a framework for what is needed for artists and for communities to thrive through the cultural lens. And that is very much about the platforms, the access to capital, and the systems of acknowledgement. And this is precisely what Destination Crenshaw is bringing to a community that has no shortage of creativity. And I think what is also really exciting is that Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson has just been named chairwoman of the National Endowment for the Arts, and she is a nearby resident. So I know that she is going to be briefed on this project if she's not aware of it already. But it does just show that the time is now, the time is right, and Destination Crenshaw is absolutely getting it right. And I also just have to lift up the Felicia Filer because her incredible ability to help advise Destination Crenshaw and move this through the structure for commissioning and then bringing this before the commission is also exceptional. So thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful. This is so exciting. And I can't wait for groundbreaking.
So I have a question for our city attorney. Do we take the artwork as one piece or do we take them separately? Each vote is separate.
Can I ask a question before she answers? Because there are other practical questions that need to be on the table, consistent with what we have done before when parks come before us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming at the present moment that we are being presented with the entire park structure, the entire park look, along with the artwork that's going in it. If we're only, so one, we probably need some clarity about what it is we're being asked to look at. If I assume it's the entire park structure, then that is where both the lighting question comes from, which is why it's not, why I brought it up, because it's not in what was being presented. That would also include whatever are the outdoor lighting poles and devices. It would include what kind of benches are going into the park and which kinds of trash cans, which puts us probably in a position to be better off saying that we're approving conceptual and whether there are elements that we want to approve as final, especially so that you can make sure you can lock down with your various artists in terms of their deals. And then knowing that you'll come back to us with those elements that we normally would see in a park that we put to others. If we don't do it, then another park will come before us and say, how come we made them do something that we're not making you do? So trust me, I'm really having a hard time saying that, but I know that I cannot be, I need to find my impartiality on this particular way that we approach what we do.
And thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. There is a reference to the issue with regards to greenery and grass and et cetera, which I loved, and I saw it in the picture. And I'm sitting back doing renovations on my own home and looking at what grass I got to take out and I can't have anymore. We are so into not watering grass out here these days, and I don't see a whole lot of that changing. So when I see a patch of grass that doesn't look like it's really big enough to like play ball on, I envision that someone's going to come along later and say, no, it's not a patch of grass, which is one why that mature tree question becomes so important. But where we see patches of grass, the conversation around Los Angeles drought and whether or not that needs to be something else and what that does to your park setting, and whether it interferes with whether this is somewhere you could sit or where we would put a bench or whatever, all of those things are a consideration. I'd love the grass, but I bet you somebody's going to turn around and tell us we can't have a grass where we want to have grass.
Commissioner Guerrero, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I had the same question to clarify what it is we are approving.
Yeah, and Felicia, I can speak to that. We are presenting or bringing to the commission to get conceptual and final approval on the artworks and the art objects. And if it's, your point well taken about Kahinde's piece, if we can maybe, sort of disengage his piece and get conceptual and final on the artworks for the other 6 works and just get conceptual on his until we get the final rendering, then staff can happily bring that back once we get the final rendering. But today, the request is just for approval of the artworks.
So then you would be coming back to us with regards to all of the other issues with regards to the design of the park.
It sounds like that is your request. I think that the city, meaning other city departments, has been inconsistent in terms of what kind of streetscape projects they bring to the commission. Some streetscape projects come to the commission, some do not. But if it's your desire to see the designs of the park, then we can bring that back at a separate meeting.
I raise it because it has consistently been something that has been brought to our attention. I don't know what to say about the city's inconsistency, but I can tell you about what we understand is part of our purview and that we have been responsible for dealing with before. And this is long before Destination Crenshaw came up.
Yeah, and I guess my position is that for streetscapes, that typically where there's not a structure, or it's a park that doesn't have a structure, those projects typically don't come to the commission. They get, approved through Public Works or something. So, there's not like a recreation center or swimming pool, et cetera. It's not, street furniture that goes on the street. So I think, if the commission so desires to see the full, the design of each parklet, then we can come back at another meeting to make that presentation.
I would venture to say that we probably have some very serious differences of understanding of the definition of what is an impact of a design on a public space. However, and it may mean that we need the city to come to some reconciliation around these issues, but we have had before us reviews of spaces that have walkways and ramps and benches and no recreation centers and no bathrooms as part of the overall design. I'm assuming none of these parks will have bathrooms. I see how they're designed. If you had brought it to us as a design element, I would be just as ready to deal with approving the design elements for the park today with what I have seen. We might have a few questions like, what kind of pavers are they? And, it's a couple of, what does the railing look like? And a bunch of other things like that, which is things that we usually ask about. But I would have said yes, but I don't want to find ourselves in an inconsistency. If I take your definition, these kinds of projects would never come before us again. We can't be inconsistent.
Right, but we're considering the public art, right? We're not considering.
Exactly. But I'm putting on the table, therefore, that the rest of it needs to come back to us so that we can vote on it.
Great.
And can I just jump in, because this is the moment where I'm pulling our handy dandy commission guidebook. And I just want to say that the role of the commission design as advisory panel is to raise the quality of civic design within the city of Los Angeles by reviewing projects that will enhance the community character and set an example for private developer. So that's the design advisory panel. That is the kind of overarching goal of what we are trying to achieve. The item before us is the public art. So what I would recommend is that the commission takes a vote on the project before the body. And then if it needs to come back in terms of the civic design of the 1.3 mile project, then I would recommend that the Destination Crenshaw organization do that.
Okay, so as far as the public art is concerned, are there any other commissioners who have any comments about how we're going to put the motion forward? Because I would say that we could consider all the artists in one, with exception of, I'm sorry if I mispronounce, Wiley's project. Or we can put Kehinde Wiley's project just for conceptual approval and the rest for conceptual and final.
So I think we need a motion on the table.
So moved.
Okay, but
Commissioner, or how do I, okay.
Yep, perfect. So Commissioner Jefferson, could you please state the motion for the record?
I move that we approve for final all of the artists for concept and final, and that Kehinde Wiley is for conceptual.
Only.
Great. And then we need a second on that motion.
I second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Vincent. So I will do the roll call. Commissioner Jimenez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Ho?
Yes.
Commissioner Gallardo?
I'm very happy and excited, yes.
Commissioner Vincent?
A wholehearted yes.
And Commissioner Jefferson?
Jumping up and down, yes.
And I also vote yes. So motion has been approved. Thank you all. It's a great project.
Thank you.
Very excited.
Thank you,
very much.
commissioners.
So the next project before us is the public art for the 6th Street Park. It's the 6th Street Viaduct and Park, which is Parks, Arts and River Connectivity. The owner is the City of LA. It's in Council District 14. The approval is for conceptual approval, and I think Miss Becky Snodgrass is going to be presenting.
Hi, yes, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to request that this item be taken out of order and be presented after the 6th Street Park architectural project as the larger context for the public art component.
Oh, okay, great. Is there any objection to that from any of the commissioners? Okay, wonderful. So we will take that after item number 7. So the next item, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Monument, I think is going to be held to the next meeting. Is that correct? Okay, so then we can move on to item number 7, which is the architectural submission, the 6th Street Park Cafe Office and Restroom Building located on Santa Fe Avenue in Anderson. The architect is Michael Melson's Architecture, would be presented by Paul I don't know how to say your last name.
Stolting.
Stolting. Thank you very much. And this is for conceptual and final approval.
Commissioner,
Yes.
we do have a raised hand from the public. I believe Mr. Richard Shave has his hand held up.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bay. Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
We have a member of the public raising their hand, and I believe he has a comment.
Yes, it is the same individual who raised their hand before. So I believe public comment was granted on the agenda item.
So that item is closed, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Is he speaking with regard to one of the other items, or do you not take public comment as it may come up for each item?
Correct. Public comment is taken for non-agenda items at the beginning of the meeting and then taken on public comment on agenda items as well. And Mr. Shave provided public comment on the item relating to, oh, forgive me. Yes, he was offered public comment for the agenda item.
Okay, so he's
At the
speaking on this. Okay, so he doesn't want to speak on behalf of this next agenda item. Is that correct?
We take all of the public comment at the beginning of the meeting, either on agenda or non-agenda items.
So the public doesn't have an opportunity once they have the item has been presented and they have a fuller understanding of it to make a comment?
They are able to make a comment at the beginning of the meeting germane to the items on the agenda.
Right, but that's before the items have been presented, so they don't have
Correct.
a full understanding of it.
Yeah.
So I see.
But they can look at the items online, so they've seen them. So I think we can move on to the next item. I think Commissioner Ho, you'll be leaving us and then jumping back on possibly at 3:30, but we have quorum, correct? So
That's right.
Correct.
thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ho. So the next item again is at the 6th Street Park, and I think Paul Stoling, you're going to be presenting, is that correct?
Correct. I'll share my screen right now.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone's able to see it?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon, commissioners, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to let us present our project this afternoon. My name is Paul Stolting. I'm with Michael Maltzan Architecture, and we are with a team comprised of ourselves and Tetra Tech and Hargraves Jones, who've been developing the 6th Street Park design. I'll be speaking specifically about the architectural component of the project. There are 3 small buildings which support the program of the park. It's a 12-acre park, and the buildings are located strategically on both the east and west ends. So on the west side off of Santa Fe Avenue, we have 2 small buildings. One is a small restroom and a cafe, and we'll of course zoom into these later. And then on the east side of the river, we have another building which houses Rec Park's storage, some public restrooms, and office and concession space. So these are all located to be close to major streets passing through the park, and also programmed to match the type of activities in the park around them. So I'll point out the building itself is this pair of oval shapes next to the basketball court and then a playground to the south. The oval shapes are a distinct architectural plan feature of these projects. It gives them a very unique appearance, and you can also see that the park design itself is comprised of a series of ovals. So the park concept has been called Canopy and Objects, and that really refers to the canopy of trees and then the defined boundaries of the various programs. So the buildings relate to those shapes. I'll note also that the buildings are beneath the new 6th Street Viaduct, so you can see that passing overhead. The east buildings off of Anderson Street, there's parking nearby, outdoor seating. A closer look at the plan. The program of the 2 buildings, it's slightly different. On the southern end, we have an office space for Rec Park staff, break room, restrooms, and then a concession stand, which will support any kind of sports activities, competitions, events in the area as well. On the north end, and these 2 buildings are connected, well, it's one building. The 2 halves are connected by an overhead bridging element, which creates kind of a gateway for people entering from Anderson Street. The northern end, or the northern half, I should say, is comprised mostly of the public restroom spaces and 2 storage facilities for Department of Recreation and Parks maintenance. This also provides very quick, easy access to plumbing. You'll see clearly in this elevation image that the building is yellow. So this is a unique feature of the buildings, is that they're all painted a vibrant yellow along with various elements in their surrounding area. You'll see closer on the west side that the ground beneath the buildings is also painted a vibrant yellow. It's intended to make the buildings stand out in the park so that you can always rely on them as a wayfinding beacon to find your way to concessions or restrooms or sinks. Also in the image on the bottom, which is our east elevation, this is the concessions window. There's a perforated security screen which opens up. Section of the building. These are constructed of cast in place concrete. It's a good way to get both durability and the unique curvature that's in the design. And a 3D view showing how the building relates both to the basketball court to the northwest and even the viaduct structure. This is one of the columns coming down from the bridge overhead. There will be furniture. It's not part of the building itself, but it's intended to be an area for people to occupy. And kind of an illustration of the park lighting. The buildings do not themselves have special accent lighting. They rely on the even coverage of lighting throughout the park, which is all a specific kind of light pole, which casts light onto the ground. These buildings, if I can jump back to the plan, they will have accent lighting in this soffit where people move between the two. And then there will also be down lighting near the sinks and the water fountain. Two images, just as kind of a historic reminder of what has been going on at the site. It was formerly many warehouses and formerly the site of the old 6th Street Viaduct, which had been demolished at the time of these photographs. So as many people know, the new project is well underway in construction. On the west side of the park are the restroom and the cafe building. This is off of Santa Fe Avenue, and it's adjacent to both what's known as the Arts Plaza, and with a connection to the LA River to the east, and to what's known as the West Park. So a programmed area where you can access the viaduct above, both through a ramp and a stairway on the corner of Santa Fe and Mesquite. The ground in this area is also painted a very vibrant yellow to bring all of the architecture and the bridge and the park together. Closer look at the plan. The restroom building is very small. It simply has restrooms and some utility space. And the cafe building, which does not have an interior design yet, is about 600 square feet. It's meant as a cafe for, let's say, coffees, prepackaged food. It's not a full food service type of program. Just describe what you're seeing in the context here. The gray area to the west is the abutment of the viaduct, and the two columns to the right support the viaduct overhead. So these two buildings are beneath the bridge at this location as well. A couple of elevations showing the windows, the heights. They're fairly low because there is a structure overhead. And in the cafe building, which is on the bottom image here, we have some fairly large windows for people to look in and out of as they're moving along either Santa Fe or enjoying an espresso in the cafe. A quick section through the two buildings. There are some dropped portions of the ceiling which are intended to enclose mechanical equipment for this space. And then a 3D view of the two buildings in their context. There's quite a bit of yellow here, both the abutment wall, the ground, the buildings, and even the insides of the viaduct columns are all painted with the very vibrant yellow. Furniture will be part of the park project. It's movable, it's not built in, so it can change over time and adapt according to use. Again, there's some lighting throughout the park. There's a series of pole fixtures interspersed throughout the two buildings on the west side and throughout the seating. And then two photos from this location. So in the top construction photo, you can see the site of these two buildings, the two columns, and then the abutment of the bridge in back. So towards the left will be the cafe, and towards the right, a little bit further back, will be the restroom building. I believe this is our last slide, which is a materials palette. Again, there will be a lot of yellow painted concrete and painted stucco for the exteriors of the buildings, simple polished concrete floors and white interior paint, and then glass with an aluminum frame. And that is all of the information I have. We're happy to take questions and turn it back to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stolling. I'm going to ask some of the fellow commissioners if they have any comments. Commissioner Jimenez, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vincent, do you have any questions?
Yes, again, will there be mature trees and planting? And I didn't get a chance to see it, just out of curiosity. Does the viaduct go over the basketball courts so that you could play in the rain, and also during the summer you don't have sun in your eyes?
I can answer, I'll start with the basketball court question. We can show the image here, and
Okay,
you
so
can
half of
see the viaduct overhead passing over, let's say, half of the court. So you could be fully shaded by the sun during certain times of day, but it would only partially protect from rain. Trees are included in the project. I believe there are 200 plus trees as part of the landscape design.
At what maturity will they be?
I believe they're new trees.
So what height, roughly?
It's a question best answered by the landscape designer, but I think it's a 3-foot root ball. So I think they'll be fairly small.
Okay, and so the landscaping that you have depicted here, I'm assuming that is what you were assuming that the fully matured trees are going to create a canvas for, a canopy for, rather.
The illustration probably shows trees closer to a mature state.
Okay. And you don't know the rate of growth or anything like that. Are they fast growing trees? Are they, how many will die, you know?
No, I don't know. Again, it's a question best answered by the landscape architect. So we're here to present specifically the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get clarification again, where we are focused on the buildings for approval? Is that correct? And just for my information, because I know this project has been going on for quite a long time, everything else has already been approved where approval is needed. Does anyone know the answer to that question? Or will it be, are these things that will be coming to us through another department? But so my thing is, we're only focused on the buildings, but the question I have is, for the rest of it, has that already been approved? Does any staff member know the answer to that?
Commissioners, my name is Gary Lamb from the Bureau of Engineering. I'm the project manager for the 6th Street Park project. So to address that question, we did at the very conceptual stage of the project, we actually ran this concept through the Rec and Parks commissioners, and this was done back in the spring of 2017. We also held a total of 6 large community meetings with the public. So this project has been well received by both the Rec and Parks commissioners and the public at large.
Yeah, I don't doubt that process. I just not having been, sometimes parks come to us. So I think that goes back to this is something we can talk about at another meeting, but just trying to get clarity on that, and you provided that, so thank you.
And I will say
I'm
that
chiming in. I need to chime in. This is the same issue. We have had parks come to us, and what those parks are going to look like, and in this case, it's public land, so we're not even having a debate about whether any of it is private. And what they're going to look like, from the trash cans to the benches to the lighting poles to the landscape. All of that has come to us for review and consideration if someone wants to go to final. If they're just going to concept, we're great. And whether or not Parks has seen it or not seen it has not precluded that was part of our purview.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Jefferson, because I mean, nothing's perfect, but I think there's a need for clarity about the consistency or lack thereof of around parks, pocket parks, small spaces, whether they come to us or not.
Can I read this directly from our handbook? The CAC's current role includes acting on behalf of the city's residents to oversee the development of the built environment, specifically through design review of any building or structure built on or over city property, including public art. The commission also accepts works of art to be acquired by the city. So I think that contextually, this is the contextual conversation that we have on a regular basis, where reviewing design review in context with site, with location, etc., comes into question. And that is something that when we are presented with the project, if it's just a park, it's not going to come before us. If it is a park that has public art on it, we're going to review the public art, but we're going to see it in context with the entire project. When we saw the Hollywood Rec Center, for example, we looked at that project in totality, and we're also, you are looking at the context of that. So I don't know if that helps, but that is what our handbook says.
I guess my question is there a landscape architect who is designing this park? And I guess that's what everybody's question is. I mean, I'm looking at this project thinking we're looking at the building, the park is another thing. So I
mean, it's somewhat of a harsh environment, and it is the landscaping that is really being relied on to soften the environment, and more importantly, to provide shade. Given our climate situation, that's becoming of more and more importance. So I would hate to see a situation where we have, once again, tiny trees that are not intended to mature for 10 years or longer, and half of them end up not making it for whatever reason. And then we're left with, a big unshaded open space that's much less inviting.
But I think the question is, there's two separate things. There's a building that an architect does, and then there's landscape, which are trees, benches, light poles, all that stuff that a landscape architect presents to us. So I think we have to say we are looking at building, correct? And we're not looking at the landscape at the moment.
But his point is that whether a building is appropriate in the context has a lot to do with what's intended for the context. We have looked at buildings that are intended to be purely industrial use in industrial areas, at which point, whether they decide they're going to paint it blue or purple is a smaller question. Whether or not the design of this building, I mean, I love the oval shapes and the way they're approaching it, and it's not so industrial. I love all that. Whether or not the building should be yellow, I actually think is a fun idea in the context of it sitting in a park and giving it some vibrancy and some et cetera. I think Commissioner Vincent's comments are well taken with regards to, but if it's intended to be this building with these yellow buildings with live plush trees, then that's what we would want to see. How people move in and out between the buildings, use the space in the daytime and the nighttime, impacts whether the buildings themselves, both as how they are designed and they're intended to be entered and used, is relevant to the conversation. And I don't know how we got into this moment of confusion, because we have never, ever, ever been confused in the past.
Right. And usually there is someone like Mia Lair's office or someone that comes with the landscape palette.
Yeah.
Sometimes that comes after and sometimes it comes before the building. So I'm not.
And everything that both Commissioner Jefferson and Scrofano have been Well, and Vincent have been speaking are design related elements, right? And according to what we just heard or were reminded about our guidebook, through our guidebook, to me, those are all design elements. So I'm confused. I'm just as confused between the last project's compartmentalizing and what seems to be the same here. I don't know if this is, I don't understand why it's being presented in this way when it hasn't before.
I just want to say that part of our role is when your government, when your city builds something for its residents, it's a commentary, it's a communication to those residents. And I think it is extremely important that we are conveying that we care about them and that this is, not trying to check some box. And so I think in that process, part of our role is to be sure that is communicated, that that we're saying that this is important for use of a park and shade, and breaking up these hard concrete surfaces with foliage is important, and so are the occupants.
Right, but it might be that we are only, so Paul, are you coming before us just with the building, correct?
Just with the buildings.
You're not involved in the overall park design except beyond a conceptual level, correct?
Correct. Just the buildings in this situation. Yeah.
So do you know, is there a landscape? I mean, to answer the questions of the commissioners, we just have to have some understanding.
Yes.
Who's doing the landscape? Who's doing the park?
I think we need to ask Mr. Lamb.
So commissioners, yes. Again, I'm the project manager from the Bureau of Engineering, and we do have a team of consultants, and Michael Maltzon is one of them, of course, presenting the buildings. We do have a landscape architect on board too. Paul mentioned in the very beginning, it's Hargraves Jones is our landscape architect. So what I'm hearing is you guys just want to maybe see how the landscape is laid out in relation to the buildings, right? Is that correct?
No, I'm more interested in the maturity and the canopy that the trees are going to be planted when the park opens to the public.
Okay, we can get that addressed.
Gary, can you hear me? And this is Mauricio. I could
Oh,
probably
yes.
answer some of this.
Hi, Mauricio. Yes.
Sure. Commissioner Vincent, I'm a landscape architect. I am not the landscape architect of record. I'm more of a consultant helping with the project. But I think I can effectively address some of your questions. So yeah, there was 238, I believe, trees programmed for the park project. The majority of the trees are either 24 or 36-inch box trees. So they're somewhere between, 3 to 5 to 7 years old, depending on the species. I would say that a 36-inch box tree could be as tall as 7 to 9 feet, again, depending on the species. The planting has been thoroughly vetted to be hardy enough to, it's an urban environment, hot, lots of reflective surfaces. So it's fairly hostile for plant material. So BOE's landscape architect, Hargrave Jones, landscape architect, have looked at the plant material, and I've looked at the plant material. We're all pretty comfortable with what was selected. And just to give you a little background as well, I am also helping the city with the UFMP, that's Urban Forest Management Plan. I've been working with the Chief Forest Officer, Rachel Malaridge. So I think we've worked pretty hard on the at least in the plant material selection, the plant palette. Now, in terms of size, that's a very good question, because a lot of times people like to see instant landscape, and we'll bring in a specimen tree, a 70-inch box, and very large transplanted oak for instant impact. They're very expensive, and obviously, if you have something that large, yes, it's a well-established tree. But if you talk about, it's likely that 15-gallon trees that are planted, and I don't think we have any. I think it's either 24 or 36-inch box. But smaller trees have shown to outgrow over time larger trees that are just not, basically were established elsewhere and brought into that environment. So it's really how quickly they can adapt and how well they're maintained at the first couple of years, and how well they're fed and irrigated. So it really becomes an O&M issue. Anyways, I sorry that I'm sort of morphing into
we're going in the weeds here a little bit. To put anybody off, but I guess our question is, will we see a landscape plan from Hargreaves and Jones on what plants, what?
So I think I want to just interrupt, Commission President. In terms of when a project is presented holistically to this commission, the commission will weigh in on the entire project. This is a technical issue that I think we need to confer with our city attorney on. The design guidelines in the commission handbook and by ordinance gives the commission design review of the built environment. And that is where, I do not know if asking for this project to come back for a review of landscape is within the commission's purview. I think that needs to be addressed with the lens of the city attorney and the commission president, so that determination can happen.
If in fact the Parks Department has approved the design for the park, we would normally have been brought to us. We've gone to the Parks Department. Here's the design, here's the built environment that the Parks Department has agreed to. Here is the building we want to put into that environment. Or we're told, here's the building we want to put in. We're still reviewing with the Parks Department what the built environment's going to look like. And then somebody comes back and says to us, but figuring out the appropriateness of a building on a site without taking into consideration what are the elements of that site is putting Legos in the middle of your driveway. There is no, we have never been confused about this. We have never had a problem with this. I will say the following. If you go back to the design elements on the building that were at the end, the materials that were being used, and thank you for bringing and showing those to us. I actually love the fact that they are oval, that they're not square boxes, that they're trying to approach it from a different place. I kind of love the yellow feeling of it. If I looked at the yellow feeling in the environment that's being shown to us right now, it makes me whack because I don't know what it's trying to do. If I see it in the context of it being a park, I think it's going to work. Asking us not to be able to envision that park is extraordinarily unfair and inappropriate if you're asking us to look at it in the context of a built environment. I would be happy to approve this as conceptual and make it final when I understand the built environment it is going into. Then we don't have to have a conversation about whether it is a park or whether it's a tar pit. The conversation will be, what will the built environment around it being? And forgive me if I sound terse about this, but I just don't understand because I've been on this thing for years and we have never, ever had this problem before. And if something, lastly, if something's gonna go to the Parks Department before it comes to us, then let us ask that we have what the other agencies have approved so that we know that we're trying to support our sister agencies in what they've done. Otherwise, we're second guessing, and then someone wants to know why we're second guessing. It's because we didn't get the thing. And by the way, this is not a reflection on the architects or the designers or anything else. I just don't understand why this is slipping in this manner.
So can I present to the fellow commissioners that we approve the conceptual and ask for them to come back for the final with the additional information? Because that kind of how.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Scrofano. I have the ad code open. If I could just read the section related to the design work of the commission. Under the ad, section 22.109, halfway through the paragraph, the design of no public building, bridge, approach, fence, retaining wall, lamp post, or other similar structure proposed to be erected by or under the authority of the city upon any land or in any place belonging to or under the control of the city shall be adopted by the board or officer having charge, unless such design shall have been first submitted to or approved by the Board of Cultural Commissioners by a majority of vote. Also, no arch, bridge, structure, or approach belonging to any private individual or corporation shall be permitted to extend over into or upon any street, avenue, highway, or other public place belonging to or under the control of the city, unless the design and location thereof shall have first been approved by the board as herein provided. And under this section, the work of art is also described here as being all paintings, mural decorations, inscriptions, stained glass, statues, bas-reliefs, and other sculptures, monuments, fountains, arches, gates, and other structures of a permanent character intended for ornament or commemoration.
So, City Attorney, can you tell me when a ordinance is silent on an issue? So, for example, the issue in question is whether or not the commission can review this project without, can the commission review this only within the narrow lens of what the ordinance says, or does the commission have the ability to review this project in totality? And if so, then we would actually need to see the other materials that are being presented as part of this park, which means the species of plant material, tree canopy, et cetera, et cetera. And I think most importantly is this kind of rule of thumb of when a policy is silent on an issue. Where does the city attorney stand on that?
Generally, we would be, in that case, guided by the language of the ad code. And here it's basically talking about structures. I understand and appreciate the commission's need to envision the environment and to have that presented to them as a whole in order to approve these types of structures that the commissioners have purview under.
Perfect. And then just to add the question, if we need, look, our city is evolving, our commissions evolve. If we need to have the ordinance revised to include context, right? So I think the missing word is context, so that we can review within the context of the project, which would include location, placement, and relationship to landscaping, lighting, community, etc. Because this is the crux of the issue. What would we need to have to revise the ordinance so that the commission can review these projects in totality?
A request for an ordinance change, which could come from City Council.
Perfect.
I mean, it would need to come from City Council, yes.
I'm sorry. A built environment is a built environment, whether it's made up of 12 lights coming from the ground, 10 from the sky. And so a built environment is in fact all of the elements that go into and surround where that building or that bridge There were bridges in the last project. All of those things are going to take place. In fact, what the city attorney read was even clearer than anything that Danielle read. And I've read them before. That's why I'm not confused about this. I understand what's come before us in all of the discussions, and they have never been a doubt. I'm not having a problem where I think there's some silent on this issue. I'm having a problem with the idea that we're being asked to approve a building as final without an understanding of the built environment. And that is the only thing. So the question is, what do we vote on? I'm happy to put a motion on the table to approve in concept so that we can then understand by looking at the rest of the built environment, whether in fact what we've approved conceptually, in fact, is going to work the way we are thinking it's going to work. I would be very happy to do that. And I'm so sorry, Mr. Lamb, and all of the architects that you've had to endure and watch this conversation, but we're not entitled to have a conversation without the public watching us, and that's why it's happening. I don't even know why it came up as confusion.
So is there, so we have a first for the motion for concept only for the 6th Street Park Cafe Office and Restroom. Do we have a second?
I second. And having brought up the first question on this project, it was because I did not know what had already been approved and what wasn't, what was and wasn't already presented to the commission before I came on. So there wasn't a confusion about what you just put forth, Commissioner Jefferson, because I 150% agree with you that it is clear to me. But I wanted to understand what was actually being presented to us for approval and what had already been approved, and if those were two separate things. But I don't want to further confuse these. This thing, I second the motion to approve conceptual.
Thank you, Commissioner Gallardo. So now I'll call the roll call vote. Commissioner Jimenez, how do you vote?
Excuse me, do we have to vote on whether we're going conceptual now and not final?
Yeah, the motion before is for conceptual only for the 6th Street Park Cafe.
Okay.
Yes, for conceptual.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Vincent,
Also yes on conceptual.
Commissioner Gallardo.
Yes, and can we as a body get clear on what we want brought back to us, just for the record?
Okay, can we finish the vote or?
Oh, yes, sorry, I just wanted to add that in.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes for conceptual.
And I also vote yes for conceptual. So conceptual's been approved. Can we move on to the next item? I have a time constraint too, you guys. I have to be off by like 4:15.
I don't think we addressed what we are requesting to be brought back to us.
We would like to see the other elements that are going to make up the built environment in which the buildings are going to be situated.
So the landscape plans, the materials, the lights, the context of the surrounding building.
And in my case, I'm most concerned with properly mature trees to adequately provide shade.
Yes, and trees. And well, that's part of the landscape, correct? So, okay.
Great. And I'm just going to stop and just check with Candace to make sure she got that instruction.
Yes, I'm good.
Thank you so much.
Great. So the next item we're taking will be
Before you call it, can we just say thank you to all of the last presenters for bearing with us?
Yes.
Thank you for bearing with us. Yes.
Thank you for bearing with us. The next item that was taken out of context will be the public art for the 6th Street Park facility. And I think Becky Snowgrass is going to be presenting, correct?
Yes. Good afternoon, commissioners. I want to be conscious of the time constraints. So One note before I hand it off to the artist Glenn Kino, who is here for conceptual review only of the public art component for the 6th Street Park, is that Glenn was commissioned back in 2014 for this project. And at that time, it was for the viaduct itself, the 6th Street Viaduct overhead, prior to the city initiating the actual park project that is now being developed for underneath the viaduct. And that didn't happen until a few years after that. So I will now hand it over to Glenn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. As Becky said, I first presented it to a committee in 2014. So it's been 7 years and a few hours of watching this. I think it's really important that we do this right. So I think it's great. And my voice is hoarse because it's really dry in here. So what I thought I wanted to do is show a little context from my work. And really what I do for all of the projects is really, I want to start with the intention of what my practice and my work, and then talk about the intention of this work and give you some context. But let me just share my screen real quick if I can. So generally speaking, the intention of my work is to use the opportunities of art to bring people together, to really celebrate the spirit of those who came before me, before us, and to learn about each other and connect stories of generations. You know, for me, art is a very powerful tool of abstraction that allows disparate things that normally don't have a chance to connect. And in the public sphere, it even makes it more important. These are just some examples of past work. So the first few slides, this is not a proposal for this work, just by context. This is about 4 or 5 projects for past work. This is a sculpture that currently exists in the Pittsburgh airport. It is commissioned by the city of Pittsburgh, and the assignment was to connect the past to the present. Pittsburgh is a city of bridges. It was also a city of robotics. And so it was sort of a robotic sculpture intended to fuse together the narrative of, the two parallel narratives of the city in a way that created an exciting and dynamic interaction for the public. This is an artwork called Bridge. It's actually the cast arm of the African-American athlete and activist Tommie Smith, who in 1968, raised his fist at the Mexico City Olympic Games. Excuse me, Tommie and I have been in collaboration for over 8 years now through a number of different exhibitions and projects that have not only brought his story to the public, but have created new foundations. We established the foundation for him, for young athletes, and really used the power of creating this artwork to, help the civic good in a lot of different ways. We've connected him to President Obama, met in the Oval Office, and done a lot of really great things. And now we have a feature film on Starz that was recently nominated for an Emmy, really telling the story about Tommie. And most of all the support actually goes directly back into Tommie and his legacy. This is a project at Mass MoCA right now. It's currently installed. It was actually, the idea is about connecting the story of sacrifice from Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama, to Bloody Sunday in Derry, Northern Ireland. I conceived of the project in a conversation with Congressman John Lewis before he passed. I also, years ago, had a chance to meet Jerry Adams, who was at the time the president of Sinn Féin and the Irish Republican Army. Both men told me the story of Bloody Sunday, and we fused them into a narrative that allowed people to have insight into the sacrifice that it has taken for our sovereignty and for voting rights. This is just another view of that. And then lastly for today, this is a project called Tank. It's an environmental project that we created in collaboration with scientists from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography and a lot of coral scientists around the world. It's been shown in multiple biennials. The animals are now in the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago. And we've done a lot to connect to, different scientists around the country that specialize in coral reef husbandry. So when I first presented to the committee it's like 7 years ago, over 7.5 years ago, I started, and I wanted to do this. This is really just a quick, I know I speak fast, so if I talk too fast, please stop me and slow me down. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of my personal background and history with the community and neighborhood from which this sculpture situates. I started the presentation back then 7 years ago by saying most people go to a board meeting and they show you a big number and they try to convince you that it's going to get bigger. but my presentation starts with a very small number. It's only going to get smaller from here. And so I started with this slide, and it says number 2. And it says 2 miles from the epicenter of the 6th Street Viaduct was my grandma's house. She's now moved away to a care home. But this is where I learned to throw tops. This is where, we got the ice cream man in the corner. 1.8 miles, in that back house behind AZ Nutwagon was my great grandmother's house. In Boyle Heights, we used to call it East LA. And I'll fast forward through this. 1.1 miles to the center of the 6th Street Viaduct is Roosevelt High School, where my parents both went to high school, where they met, participated in sports and student government. 1 mile from that's young, super young me. 1 mile from the epicenter of the 6th Street Viaduct was my first gallery that I created in downtown LA called Deep River. We gave artists like Mark Bradford their first show, Corey Newkirk. There's my partner Rolo Castillo and Daniel Joseph Martinez and Joel Bloom. We were on the Traction Avenue, which is now Pie Hole, but we were there pioneering and really giving. I think we gave hundreds of artists, 157 artists, shows over the course of a 5-year run. 0.5 miles right in the center of what's now the Arts District. These slides are 7.5 years old, so it looks way different now. This is my second loft. Where we worked when we created the Deep River Gallery, and I spent many years. I met my wife in the building, and we launched, a bunch of projects out of that. 0.4 miles is Liche's Bar and Grill, where my partner Rolo Castillo had a gallery called 50 Bucks, where we used to party all the time. Beck gave his first show there. The Beastie Boys used to always show there, and this is like early downtown LA days. 0.3 miles where I used to live, which is across the street from Liche's Bar and Grill. 0.3 miles from the center of the 6th Street Viaduct, all to show a 2.5 generation. Plus, personal 20-year personal history, now 30-year personal history, with the, well, actually not 40-year personal history, with the neighborhood. And prior to actually even pitching on the project, I spent time in my grandmother's neighborhood. I spent time in the Arts District. I interviewed about 40 constituents on each side, took interviews, took notes. And one thing, and we all know this in terms of the civic politics of what's going on is, there is a severe difference of opinion of how development and progress works in the city. But one thing that was universal, despite the difference, and this is again what I think about connectivity and the ability to use art to make connective gestures, is one thing that was universal was that everyone was proud of being in LA. And so the idea that I came up with, actually, I wanted to share this too, because this is actually the rubric that was given to me in 2013 now for the public art vision statement that the committee used when they selected me, was to create an engaging artwork that is interactive, open-ended, and reflective of LA, with an emphasis on bridging communities and activities flowing around and through the site. The artwork should address equitable on-site opportunities for participatory cultural expression. I take that very seriously. Amplify the viaduct as a central place for creative activity, enhance the viaduct as a destination and focal point to unify the city, and consider the naming of the viaduct as a way to emphasize the potential use of public art as a process for cultural exchange. So this is the lens from which the context of me not only having a personal history, but the in situ interviews went into thinking about the idea. And the idea that I came up with was to cast 500 people's hands on the east side of the river, like this peace sign, 500 hands on the west side of the river, and create a connective symbol of the LA hands that are made from people from different communities that are assembled together to create a moment and an opportunity for civic pride. So this is sort of the idea. This is, as Becky said, this is conceptual only. In the 7 years that we've been working on this, there's been a tremendous change in terms of construction materials and how that works. I'd like to say also that we have, in fact, to the person who called in's comment in advance of just everyone's thinking, we have reached out to Esteban Oriol, the artist who had taken the iconic photo a few times, and then we were about to connect right before the pandemic and just haven't had a chance to do that. Our last email exchange was in late 2019, right before the pandemic. So what we intended on doing, and still intend on doing some version of this even post-pandemic, is to cast people's hands using alginate, which is what they use when you cast your teeth if you were to have braces or any dental work. It's a very safe process to do that, and we would then put your hand in there, and we've done this. And I will say this, that the idea also was that when we finished casting the community members' hands, that they get the hand back, they get their sculpture back. And we actually did a prototype test for a few people, actually in my grandmother's block. And, at least the initial feedback was really positive, because we were hearing things, I was hearing things, we never get to contribute directly to our own creation of monuments. And that's something that's very important, particularly in reference to, the mission that we were giving. I view this project as a community project. This is not, as you can see, a singular artistic gesture where I have a vision and, or making anything. This is about creating and using an opportunity for a civic moment to bring communities together in something that forever people can say, I contributed to that. It's really about the community owning their pride in LA and owning, their part in the process, owning their representation, and forever, being implanted. So someone can say, that's my grandmother's hand, or my grandmother, posed for that. This is just in the long line of gestures of LA. Obviously, Esteban Oriol, made that image famous. He's a very important artist. He's an icon, a veteran. My hope, we have many mutual friends. My hope is that in this project, that we are able to further and celebrate his history, like we've done with Tommy's and other things. And again, it's really about creating that context so that his contribution and our civic pride all move forward together. Casting people to just get going in this process is, Oscar De La Hoya, was really happy to early be one of the first casting people. The location, we did bring this to the city, and we were talking to the landscape architects that you guys were just referring to, and Michael Maltzon's team, the initial design budgetary circumstances, sort of were we configured appropriately to have one on each side of the river. So on the West Park, the intention is to have it situated, in the location you see right there, and on the East Park, it's right on Anderson. I think these drawings look like they've evolved a bit since from what Paul just showed, but those are the versions of the locations, and I'll stop there because that's all I have. And I will stop sharing if you want to see me more, or if you want to talk and reference a slide, I'm happy to talk to that too.
Thank you, Mr. Kino. So I just want to make one comment because there is a raised hand, and the public comment has been closed. And I just want to remind people of the public that that public comment germane and non-germane to the items will be taken in the beginning of the meeting per the agenda. So on that note,
I think Andrew Kasdan, isn't he with the department?
As
Yes.
a city employee, I just wanted to mention, I know the area very well. I actually live a block away from the location for 15 years, and a really good friend of mine, Glenn, we have this shared history you may not know of, lives in the house on your block, owns it. And so I know the whole area very well. And I think this is an opportunity to be on an international press, to make an international statement that is really heard around the world. The location is such a great opportunity, and I look forward to the project.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's give this to the commission, let them do their work.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted.
So I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions or comments. Commissioner Jefferson, do you have any questions or comments?
And could you just put the map back up that shows where the artwork is supposed to go? Is that both pieces in that little purple circle?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, this is the location on the West Park.
Got it.
And it's one piece in the West Park. And so when you were driving over to the west side, you'd see it on your right side as you pull over the bridge. And on the left side, on the east side of the bridge, it is slightly tucked under the bridge, but it is on the entryway that the walking patrons would enter on Anderson Street.
And is it the exact same sculpture in both places, but the idea that you'd be able to see it in two different spots?
Yes, the idea was to create an equitable situation for the presentation of the work, and they would both be the same, not just because of budgetary reasons, but because, you know, it is really about the assembly. So to have one hand from each side, you know, situated on each side, you know, was an important part of it.
And when you're seeing the sculpture, probably more importantly from the slide you have up now, relative to the building, as I recall, I didn't see windows on the building. So are you, the entrance way to the building, like how do we see this if you're going in and out of the building?
From the building, I would guess, since I'm assuming those are the buildings, these ovals right here, you would see it to the
big,
right.
yeah, I guess the big ovals.
Yeah. Yeah, the big, yeah, so the sculpture
No, wait,
is
I'm sorry, my
oriented.
apologies. The little ovals are the buildings, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And so I'll answer your question in a backwards way, but I think it provides a more sufficient answer, because while the hands and the sculpture is created to be seen in situ and in the round, there certainly is an orientation where it actually reads like the words LA. And that orientation will face Anderson Street. So when people walk into the park, they're seeing this connected gesture in front of them. It is not situated so that the LA hands reads like LA. Would be I'd say the backside of the sculpture if you walk out of the building. So
the entrance to the park is where again?
Where that Tetra Tech logo is on this drawing, where it says L134, that is like on this, what's up in front of you right now, there's like a logo on the lower right that says Tetra Tech and L24. That is the walking entrance to the park. This is unfortunately the only map that we had that really allowed us to situate that. But if you were to connect Anderson Street all the way through, the centralized opening for the park is right around that area right there.
Right around where the sculpture is.
Yes, so it is within the walking view. When you walk into the park, you see it. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome, please.
Commissioner Jimenez, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hello?
Yes, Commissioner Vincent.
Do you have any slides giving us a sense of the size and scope and placement at street level?
We don't have that updated right now because the prices of steel and bronze have gone up significantly. I have a drawing that I can put up right now that just is a general framing of it being quote unquote architectural scale, but we indeed do not have right now an updated sense of what that is. And so it will likely be smaller than this, those being icons to represent people sizes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what if you were looking at this size, what was that intended size?
About 25 feet, 20 to 25 feet, depending on the internal structure of it. And what we're doing is we're having to kind of figure out where we cut off the hands in order to like make it sort of the most efficient base, because it can't cantilever off. Otherwise it requires much more investment into the base.
And made out of what material again?
We were thinking bronze.
A matted or shiny or?
I think we were thinking of matting because of a little bit matte so that it could patina naturally, but also, you know, we didn't want reflective issues in terms of, aviation and any other issues.
And is it high enough off the ground that theoretically one could not get on and climb on top of I don't even know, this part of the?
That is the intention.
Okay.
That is the intention. I would say we are working as we do our engineering and structural survey. That is a key component of that understanding. And that is the intention, is to not have it be something that is readily accessible to be, climbed on in that way.
Seeing this rendering relative to the kind of works and size of works that you have created before, would lead me to believe that this particular approach would be wonderful, and it's a great statement for the community in the area and for our city. And so I would be supportive, thinking particularly about some of the other kinds of works that you've shown, and which have had great engineering requirements attached to them.
Just to be clear, this is for conceptual only, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just to let you know, when you come back, there's a lot of missing pieces that we would like to see to have a much better understanding.
Yeah, please. Can you are there any that jump out at you that we were happy to?
Well, as
besides the obvious that is not done. Besides the obvious, sorry to cut you off, that is not done. But
well, as Commissioner Jefferson alluded to, with regard to height, you may have to do some value engineering, which you said would make it smaller. So we want to know what that effect is on it. And you would like to have it out of bronze, but you don't know if you're going to be able, if that's going to be in the budget. So we don't know what the material is. We don't have any idea of what the lighting is going to be for it, for the evening. And we don't have a view of the context in which it's going to be placed.
In relation,
absolutely, all up, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I would say in relationship to the viaduct, Malton's building, all the adjacent spaces, like we really need to see this in the context of where it's being located.
Yes.
We will have that information when we come back for final, for sure.
Yeah, we will have full model renderings. We're premature to show those right now, but Commissioner Vincent, absolutely, all those things will be on our list, and we have to do some work, but we will do that. That's the next step.
I'd also like to commend you on the decision to want to use some castings from the community to help you make your models and other things, and then to allow the community to have those castings back. I can tell you that we made a non-thinking about it mistake when we were at the California African American Museum, when we had people volunteer and we used their bodies to make bodies to try to depict what it would be like if you were in a slave ship, in order to then show that in an exhibit with some plastic moldings, etc. But we didn't necessarily stop to think about how we could then later either make a second molding or give that molding to those people if the show ever came down. And I think that the decision you've made is really, really thoughtful, and a lesson I learned the hard way that I am delighted that you're going to do. It'll really, really mean a lot to the community. So bravo for that thinking.
Thank you. I just reinforced that this entire project was about, having it be a community project and having it be about, equity and monument making, and the idea that it is a participatory thing. And I took that participatory line, the most strident. And when, again, interviewing people in the community to understand that, my vision and my dream was like in several generations, someone says to their friend in high school, yeah, my grandmother posed for that monument, and they go, oh, you're lying. And no, come to my house, and it's there, and in fact, we have now created these stories, because this is the thing, we can't fight the way, we can't fight in linear ways the problems of gentrification. I think not always, we can fight them in cultural and circumstantial and storytelling ways. And for me, this is about giving people a forever part of the, place in that story. So thank you.
And my last comment is that to the extent that there is, that we've had the public raise an issue, you've indicated that you all are already have been engaged in trying to reach out. I don't know that we as the commission need to be engaged in what that is, but the staff, and I'm certain Ms. Snodgrass will work with you as to how those issues are not addressed, which may or may not meet the public's concern, but they just are addressed. I don't know that I wouldn't necessarily be expecting them to come back to us once they've been worked out with the community.
Commissioner Gallardo, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, really appreciate your presentation, Glenn, Mr. Caino. Also appreciate the community engagement that you did before and throughout the process. As for conceptual, what we're focused on here, I have a hard time seeing this image and not thinking of Esteban Oriol, right? Like, I just really, I guess my question is, is that image public use? How did you negotiate that? Understanding that this is such an iconic image that has been not only published, you know, in books, in the documentary that was about him and his artwork. How are you and the department, how are you discussing this? Because it seems like it's, well, we're going to reach out to him, but I feel like there needs to be a deeper consideration of him and his work.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to answer that in two different ways. You know, I would say, you know, I have, this whole thing works if you know, this is a community project, right? So if at the end of the day, you know, there is an overall agreement that this project is not a good idea, then I'm happy to pass and move on. You know, this is not something that I am. My practice works with stakeholders being, you know, an equitable stakeholders, you know, in this, whether it's Tommy Smith or it's me reaching out to the Bloody Sunday Foundation or working with Stacey Abrams. Like, this is like, you know, trying to fundraise for people. This is like, so my practice only works if the stakeholders are on board, right? Now, that being said, the LA gesture is universal. Like, the Dodgers throw it up. There are thousands of people who throw it up all over the world. And again, my intention is not to claim any artistic ownership of that gesture at all. My intention is to actually, and as Becky knows, when we were like making the public programming, what I wanted to do is even, you know, if there's a monument and a plaque, you know, sort of put out there, you know, the lineage of that gesture, which includes and celebrates and raises Estevan as the first person, you know, to do that. And you know, my thinking only was, if that becomes popular, then all of the copyrights that he owns, all the t-shirts he makes, all the history of his artwork, we celebrate that even further. I mean, this is not something that, again, I'm trying to claim ownership of the LA hand sign at all. This is about me recognizing that when I'm speaking to people on both sides, that the thing that they share is pride. And one way that people express their pride is that. And I've seen people on social media with their friends doing that together. And like, it was really about the connectivity of that. So this is not at all about any type of erasure or transcoding. This is really about a conceptual community project that is intended to use a symbol to do that. And so I'm a huge fan. And again, like I said, like, for me, you know, we have so many friends and mutual friends, and I, you know, it just, that's where I sit in the matter.
So as a commissioner, asked to vote on a conceptual idea, the question that I would bring up is, are there intellectual property rights to this image? Has that been explored?
Well, from a legal perspective, we have explored that, and you cannot own a hand gesture. It is like I'm not going to do it, but like the flipping somebody off or like the shaka. It is not, you can't own a hand gesture. But that being said, that really doesn't matter to me from the social sense, because I'm not a guy who's going to sit around and say, well, legally I can do it. You know, that's not, we had to look into it just legally for the sake of checking all the boxes, but that's not the way that I work. But in fact, from a legal perspective, you can't own a hand gesture, although people be owning shakas and all kinds of things. So.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. I would
just lastly, I would just say, now this is something I want to, I'm sorry to cut you off, Commissioner. I want to just add one little personal narrative that, you know, I grew up and I, you know, get emotional, but I grew up with a pretty rough childhood, and not so did everyone, like many on this call, with very much gang associated situations and hand signs. And, you know, that hand sign has been a part of my historic vernacular for well before, you know, any of this dialogue. And so for me, this is about a community ownership. It is about using a circumstance to help celebrate Estevan and others, but primarily him, obviously in the neighborhood too, but really about bringing together people. And it is not about the claim of any ownership. And again, you know, as we go forward through this project, clearly now, you know, and you know, we're getting not out of the pandemic, but, you know, we can have meetings now a little bit with Mastodon, and hopefully we'll consummate all those meetings and make that happen. But this is something that we take very seriously. I want to make sure I'm over talking.
I wanted
wanna
to
make
make
sure that we don't.
sure as a commissioner that all the dots, right? Like, because there are, like,
Sure.
even when I saw it, I was like, that's Oriole. And
No, it's
I
not.
understand.
No, he says himself he didn't create it. He took the photo.
I understand that, but when I see that image, right? I'm not the first one to say this. I have to understand the legal background, what an image like that even, right? What you just explained, a hand gesture is not, you know, cannot be owned. Because I agree with you, the first time I saw that, my cousins were throwing them up. So I need to be clear about that, right? About the legal correct, like how we're approaching it legally, et cetera, so that I can vote yes or no on a concept. To your point, that will be work that you will continue to include, I'm sure, right? Have further discussions with Oriole about however he wants to be involved, because as public artwork, right, it's not the general, it is for the public, but as a public artwork, there is an arts and culture ecosystem that includes artists and curators, and, you know, so there's that too, that have a deeper knowledge to that history of the image, that will look at it and say Oriole, but no, it's Glenn Kainos, right? So I just wanted to, it's a very, I think in my opinion, it's a complex and very beautiful presentation of an image that is so reflective of LA, but I didn't want to brush aside what a lot of folks will be thinking. But now that I understand the parameters, I can vote. So thank you.
Super. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the public art for this 6th Street Park for conceptual only at this time?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Jimenez, how do you vote?
Yes to conceptual.
Thank you. Commissioner Gallardo?
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent?
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So motion is approved. Thank you very much for your presentation.
And I just
Thank you
want
all
to
so
have a
much.
touch point with Candace. We got that?
It was motion by Commissioner Vincent, second by Commissioner Jefferson. I'm good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So the next item.
Thank you.
I think, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Item number B, under architectural submission action item, it will be continued to the next meeting. So item number C, Verizon AGF, Mr. Jama, are you here?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Hi, commissioners. My item is real quick, it's like a minute. It's a 4 feet electric meter pedestal in the public right of way. I'll just show you guys right now on the photo sims what it looks like. Well, first, it's located in a downtown area. It's between West Manchester Avenue and South La Tierra Boulevard. It's in a commercial zone. There's a garage here, or a garage store. Oh, I'm sorry. I just realized you guys can't see my screen. Let me share it right now. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, Mr. Jama.
Yeah. Okay. So it's located on South La Tierra Boulevard and Manchester Avenue. So it's right here. I'm gonna go to the photo sims right now. So this is what it looks like. It's a 4 feet electric meter pedestal. It's 5 feet away from the existing utility pole near the wireless site. Due to LADWP power requirements, we're unable to have a power meter on the pole. We could have a separate meter pedestal near it. It's by the wall, by the ramp. not the ramp, the wall, the miniature wall, but there's enough room for a pedestrian walkway. If you guys can see that on the photo sims. Any questions? I'm requesting conceptual and final approval on this site.
Are there any questions, commissioners?
It's a really quick one, and I have no problem with approving this for this particular site. On your boxes, does it identify who the owner of the box is?
Yes, there will be a sticker behind the electric meter pedestal with the maintenance agreement and the individual. With the owner is Verizon Wireless, but if you call that number, they'll check it quarterly for its condition, and if there's any problem, you can just call them behind the box.
Okay, I just raised it to you because I recently saw a couple of boxes that were damaged and open and parts out of them, and I thought to myself, I wonder whose box it is. So that's just all a reason for asking.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Are there any other commissioners with questions and comments? Nope. Okay, great. Do we have a motion to approve the AGF located on the corner of Manchester and La Tierra for conceptual and final?
Commission President Scrifano, I just want to make mention that I believe Commissioner Ho has rejoined the meeting, and I'd like the record to reflect that.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Commissioner Ho, you're correct. Commissioner Ho?
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm sorry.
Here. Okay, great.
I'm here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
super. Thank you. You don't have any questions and comments, or do you? Okay.
No, I will abstain actually because I have not been here for this presentation, but you guys have quorum.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve conceptual and final for this?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jimenez. So we'll do a roll call vote quickly. Commissioner Gallardo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
I also vote yes, so the motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Jama.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Nice to see you again. So our last item is the streetlight submission. I think we can take all of these together. There are matching streetlights, which is A, B, C, D, E, and then the non-matching streetlights are item A. Are there any questions that the commissioners have? No.
Only that we
No.
asked at some point that we can say yes to the matching, but at some point we sure would love to know what we were matching to.
There should be photos that
Pictures.
were they in the agenda? I know that they had been placed as a matter of course of the existing. I'll work on that moving forward.
Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Andrew. Figured it was slipped just because you had staff changings. We understand.
So is there a motion to approve the streetlights?
Motion to approve the street light.
Second.
Thank you. A roll call vote. Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Ho.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also vote yes. So motion is approved. Thank you all. So now we're going to turn it over to the general manager's report. And I think you're going to also introduce.
Did we do the non-matching at the same time?
We did. Did it.
Okay, sorry. Thank
Done.
you. My bad.
Thank you. Thank you all, commissioners. I know that our time is short, as it always is, but I am so thrilled to introduce you to Tammy Sam, our new staff architect with the Department of Cultural Affairs. Tammy Sam is a licensed architect, and she comes to us from the private sector. And so we want to welcome her to the Department of Cultural Affairs, give her an opportunity to say a few words about herself and about what she's passionate about and what she hopes to be able to bring to the commission. And Tammy, what I'm going to say to you right now in front of the entire public is that we are so excited to be able to work with you. We have been MacGyvering our commission since we had the retirement of our city architect who had been with the city for over 35 years, and our commission secretary as well. So we've been kind of rebuilding the commission staffing. I want to just give Rebecca Guerrero one last shout out to say thank you for helping to staff the commission. We're happy that Candace Arnold is stepping in as the commission secretary. And just to also give Andrew Kasdan a huge shout out to say thank you so much for taking this on. We are hoping to move this over to Tammy Sam. And Tammy, one of the things when you start to review the projects that are coming before, I think you'll really get a feel for the questions that the commission is going to be asking for. They are tough. They hold the built environment in the broadest sense, which we absolutely love. They care deeply about communities, and they care deeply about context and design. So and lighting. And it's what community deserves. It's what every community deserves. So I want to commend the commission for your diligence, and I want to hand it over to Tammy to introduce herself.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hey everyone, my name is Tammy and I will be the new staff architect here at the Department of Cultural Affairs. I've previously worked in the private sector on large-scale mixed-use and hospitality projects. And I'm currently sitting on the City of Monterey Parks Planning Commission. And prior to that, I was on the Design Review Board. So I really appreciate the dialogue that is going on in this commission, that you guys are so thorough. You look at everything from every aspect. And because I do the same thing on the Planning Commission as well. So I think it's great, the enthusiasm and how everyone just really wants to make sure that every project has been examined from every aspect. I'm very excited to be working with you guys. And yeah, I'm just very excited to be working here. And thank you.
We're excited to have you, Tammy. Commissioners, do you want to say anything for Tammy?
Welcome to
welcome.
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank
you to the
Thunderdome.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Welcome, Tammy.
Bringing you in.
I think the biggest thing, Tammy, is we're really, we're kind of sticklers for context, materials. If it's landscape, what are the benches? What are the trash cans? All the colors. So as much information as they can include in their package, it's much easier for us. So we can always talk about that further, but.
Sure.
And since I'm the only architect on the commission, you can always, ask me. But I think my fellow commissioners all have a very keen eye and they will notice if something's missing. So as much as you can help the applicants to have a complete package for us, just makes our job a lot easier.
Sure, definitely.
Easier. It's not a job or service. So that's it for me. I don't know. Does anyone else have anything else to say?
Welcome to the other staff members as well. We're glad to have you. Thank you. We know you guys have been pushing through COVID and Zoom.
Oh.
Hey, when do we expect to be meeting you all in person?
Hopefully soon.
Well, I think that is an issue that will be taken up at the next commission meeting in November. And you will all be receiving, so I'll just move into my general manager's update. You all will be receiving a memo from the city attorney about that. The item will be placed on the next commission meeting, and the commission will vote to either extend virtual meeting virtually for a period of time, or to begin to meet in person. So you will be all receiving that memo shortly. I want to just be cognizant of the time, because I know, Commission President, you indicated that you need to wrap the meeting up, correct?
Soon, I just texted them that. I'll just-
Okay, so you're running a little behind.
Yeah.
So as what we have been doing with, and Commissioner Vincent, I just want to make sure that I answered your question.
Yes, you did. With
Okay.
regard to when we're going to be meeting in person?
Yep, you will take that up at the next commission meeting.
Terrific.
Okay, perfect. So as we know, we have had a pretty massive transition of staff within the Department of Cultural Affairs. I informed the mayor in August that I would be stepping down as in my role as the general manager. My last day in the office is October 29th. We are working on a transition plan with the mayor's office, so more information will be coming shortly. I want to tell you all that it's been an extraordinary privilege to work with the Department of Cultural Affairs over the past 7.5 years. The senior team especially has been extraordinary to work with. They are phenomenal servant leaders. Daniel Tarika is also one as the Assistant General Manager, and the Acting Community Arts Director, who really knows no bounds of commitment to service. You know, we know that the next year is going to be a year of rebuilding with the department, and a year of transition with the city, especially with our elected leadership. But I actually have to say that I think that the department is going to be in very solid hands. And I think that we have more support around not only the city, but the horseshoe, every member of city council, our city administrative officer, our chief legislative analyst and officer, all really understand the incredible value that we bring to the city. So thank you all, and I look forward to working with you on the other side.
Do you know what you'll be
Danielle.
doing? Danielle, do you know what you're going to be moving on to?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We're gonna miss you.
Yeah.
Danielle, thank you for your service to the city, to the community. I've enjoyed working with you and understanding this process under your leadership for at least 5-6 years. So thank you so much for what you do. Please know that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
And especially thank you for guiding us through this time of COVID. And you've really brought us out of a dark tunnel in much better shape than we were even going into it.
We will continue that trajectory.
I started off with tears of joy, and now I'm just speechless. But I have known you and your work and your talent for a long, long time, both before in cultural affairs and at cultural affairs. And we are all the better for everything you've done for us. Thank you so much. We hate to see you go.
Yeah.
Really.
Thanks,
you,
Danielle, for building back a Department of Cultural Affairs that has been able to do through the people, right, that do it, has been able to do what it has for our community with regard to arts and culture, to respond both with the financial, right, with our budget increases, with the community engagement, with the expanded public art presence that Felicia has just really put a mark on for the city in ways that it's been a long time coming. So thanks for your leadership in all of that. Just really putting DCA front and visible and centered as it should be for our city, who we claim to be the creative capital of the world. So thank you for steering that ship over these years.
I just want to
It's
say
been a
that
great honor.
I'm new to the commission, obviously, but I just want to say I really appreciate all of the work that you do and making the transition into being on the commission as smooth and as lovely as it could be. And I'm sad to see you leave at this time, but I'm very excited to hear about your next steps and what you'll be doing next.
Thank you all. And let me just say, it's going to be hard. Transitions are messy and the city's messy right now. And that is what it is. But there is extraordinary talent and leadership within the Department of Cultural Affairs. Everyone steps up. The mayor is incredibly supportive. And so this is the time that will usher in an entirely new era, and we will continue to build on the success that we have made. So thank you all.
Thank you, Danielle. On that note,
gavel it.
Gavel it. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much. And good luck.
Yes, good luck, Danielle. Thank you so much.
And you'll stay in touch with all of us, right?
Yes, I'll be a